Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. My first question is for Secretary Wallander and General Langley. I have been deeply concerned by the dramatic rate of democratic backsliding that we see in Africa recently, particularly in Western Africa, and would like to hear how the administration and AFRICOM are working to shore up and support democratic governments on the continent, especially those that we would classify as the most vulnerable.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And we share that concern because without stable, reliable democratic partners, we see the effects in the Sahel, in Mali and Burkina Faso, where actually insecurity has risen with the rise of military coups and also the access of Russian forces. Where Russian forces go, insecurity and instability quickly follow. What we do is something that General Langley so well laid out, which is the conditions, unfortunately, where we see that democratic backsliding are created when demagogic leaders claim that they are being driven by their populations who genuinely are not benefiting from economic prosperity, are suffering from the effects of climate change, are not seeing development, for example, of their agriculture, and so their future is viewed as bleak. And that is why it is so core to our mission in Africa to work with the State Department, to work with USAID, Department of Agriculture, across the interagency, to build those resiliences and that hope, because without that, it's hard to argue to the populations that democratic governance is delivering for the people.
You actually anticipated my next question, which was about how more funding and flexibility for USAID and the State Department would better facilitate interagency planning and collaboration for a better whole government approach to our partners in Africa. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
It is a longstanding position of the Department of Defense that we fully support Congress's provision of capabilities and resources to the State Department, USAID, and other agencies because they are vital partners in creating stability, security, and therefore stable democracies.
General Langley, anything you'd like to add on those two questions?
ASC Wallander covered, she covered 90% of it. But I'll just tell you, when we rolled down the streets this time last week of Niger and seeing some of the propaganda from Russian Federation or of the junta was telling. Our strategic communications, we have a ways to go in our narrative and what our intrinsic value, what we have to offer these countries and the whole government in building out their governance. We need to tell a better story. It needs to be compelling, and it needs to be able to go across civil society, and on my part, be able to impart good order and discipline across the forces that is civilian-led.
Thank you. And Africa is also an extremely diverse continent and home to some of the most rapidly industrializing nations on the planet. How are the administration and AFRICOM situating themselves to be nimble and responsive in this increasingly dynamic region?
I would say we, again, work with our interagency partners to identify promising partnerships where there is an interest in reaching high levels of capability and professionalism in the security sectors, military, but also other aspects of the security sectors, and we work very closely with the State Department in identifying those key countries and opportunities.
Thank you.
After my assessment across the Sahel, from East Africa to West Africa, I wanted to go down into Southern Africa to see what models of success. I saw that with the Southern Africa Development Community, whereas collectively, they know what right looks like, and with their investments, I think that, just for example, the Lobito Corridor and where President Lorenzo of Angola and all the way to Zambia, if they can get that realized and in U.S. investments of prosper Africa, I think that we can have the model of excellence, what we're searching for.
Thank you very much, and Mr. Chair, I yield back.